The enemy missiles hit at way 400 hours, turning Alpha Base into an inferno. When Commander Phillips arrived with the rescue team 6 hours later, he expected to find casualties and chaos. Instead, he found Medic Lieutenant Zara Angel Morrison standing beside 18 rescued soldiers, having single-handedly evacuated everyone while the base burned around her. The first missile struck the communications tower at exactly 4:03 a.m., sending a pillar of fire into the pre-dawn darkness. Lieutenant Zara Morrison was in the medical bay conducting routine inventory of surgical supplies when the explosion shattered every window in the building and threw her against the equipment cabinet. Incoming all personnel to battle stations. The base alarm system managed one final warning before the second missile destroyed the command center, killing the duty officer and plunging Alpha Base into chaos. Zara picked herself up from the medical bay floor. Quickly assessing her situation, the building was structurally damaged, but still standing. Outside, she could hear the distinctive whistle of more incoming artillery and the panicked shouts of soldiers scrambling for cover. The third missile hit the barracks, and Zara felt the concussion wave through the medical facility's walls. Emergency lighting flickered on as the main power grid failed, casting eerie shadows across the treatment rooms. Medical. We need medical. The first wounded soldier stumbled through the medical bay doors, his uniform torn and bloodied from shrapnel wounds. Behind him, 2 more soldiers supported a third who was unconscious and bleeding from a severe head injury. Zara's training kicked in automatically. Get him on the table. Apply pressure to that wound. You grab those gauze packets and start bandaging his arm. More wounded soldiers began arriving as the missile barrage continued. Each explosion brought new casualties and made the medical bay more dangerous as structural damage accumulated. Ceiling tiles fell, pipes burst, and the smell of smoke began filtering through the ventilation system. "Ma'am, the whole base is getting hit," reported Corporal Jackson, a radio operator who'd made it to the medical bay with minor injuries. "Command post is gone. Fire control's gone. I think we're the only building still standing." Zara looked around the medical bay, mentally cataloging her resources and the growing number of wounded soldiers who needed immediate care. The facility wasn't designed to handle this many casualties, and the ongoing bombardment made normal evacuation procedures impossible. "Jackson, I need you to help me move the seriously wounded to the basement storage area. It's more protected down there." "Ma'am, what about evacuation? Shouldn't we be trying to get out of here?" Zara looked through the shattered windows at the inferno outside. Vehicle wreckage burned throughout the compound. Ammunition stores were exploding in chain reactions, and enemy artillery continued falling with methodical precision. "There's nowhere to evacuate to right now. We're staying here until help arrives, and I'm keeping everyone alive until that happens." The basement of the medical facility had originally been designed for supply storage, but its reinforced concrete construction made it the safest location in the building. Zara organized the evacuation of wounded soldiers while continuing to treat injuries under increasingly dangerous conditions. "Ma'am, the roof is starting to collapse in the east wing," reported Private Williams, who'd been helping move stretcher cases to the basement. "Then we move faster. How many more do we have upstairs?" 6 walking wounded and 3 stretcher cases. Zara made rapid decisions about treatment priorities while coordinating the movement of patients to safety. Her medical training included battlefield triage, but she'd never applied it under conditions where the battlefield was her own medical facility. The artillery barrage continued for another hour, each explosion bringing down more of the base's infrastructure. Zara worked in the basement with flashlights and emergency medical supplies, treating everything from minor shrapnel wounds to life-threatening injuries. The wounded soldiers ranged from Private Chen, who had suffered a severe concussion when the barracks collapsed, to Sergeant Martinez, whose chest injury required immediate surgical intervention using improvised equipment. Each patient required different levels of care, and Zara had to manage multiple medical emergencies simultaneously. "Morrison, we've got a problem," called Sergeant Torres from the basement entrance. "The whole building's on fire now. Smoke's getting bad up there." Zara looked around the basement at 18 wounded soldiers in various conditions. Some could walk, others needed stretchers, and several required continuous medical attention to stay alive. "Torres, check the ventilation shafts. There should be an emergency exit that leads to the vehicle maintenance area." "Ma'am, that's on the other side of the compound. It's all burning over there. Then we're going to have to go through the fire. Zara's evacuation plan required moving 18 patients through a burning building across a compound under artillery bombardment to reach the only shelter that might protect them from the continuing assault. The emergency exit from the medical basement opened into a tunnel system that connected various buildings on the base. The tunnels hadn't been designed for patient evacuation, but they provided protection from the artillery fire that was destroying everything above ground. "Listen up, everyone," Zara announced to the assembled wounded soldiers. "We're moving to the vehicle maintenance bunker. It's underground and should protect us from the bombardment. Walking wounded help carry stretcher cases. Nobody gets left behind." Private Chen raised his hand despite the bandages around his head. "Ma'am, what if the enemy has ground forces moving in? Shouldn't we be trying to establish defensive positions?" Zara looked at the young soldier who was asking tactical questions while dealing with a probable concussion. "Chen, right now our mission is survival. If enemy ground forces show up, we'll deal with that when it happens." The movement through the tunnel system took 45 minutes, with Zara managing both medical care and logistics while leading 18 wounded soldiers through underground passages that were never intended for this purpose. The tunnels were narrow and poorly lit, requiring careful coordination to move stretcher cases without causing additional injuries. Zara had to monitor her most critical patients, while ensuring that the walking wounded could maintain the pace necessary to reach safety. The vehicle maintenance bunker was a large underground facility designed to protect armored vehicles from air attacks. It provided space for the wounded and protection from the ongoing bombardment, but it lacked medical equipment and proper lighting. "Torres, get me inventory of what medical supplies we managed to bring down here. Williams, check those emergency supply cabinets. Chen, despite your head injury, you're our best radio operator. Try to establish contact with anyone outside this base." Zara set up a makeshift medical station using maintenance equipment and emergency supplies. Her patients required everything from minor wound care to complex surgical procedures, and she had to improvise solutions using tools and materials designed for vehicle repair. The artillery bombardment continued overhead, each explosion reminding them that enemy forces were systematically destroying everything on the surface. But in the underground bunker, Zara maintained a medical operation that kept 18 soldiers alive under impossible conditions. "Ma'am, I'm getting weak radio signals from outside," Chen reported from the communications equipment. "Sounds like rescue forces are trying to coordinate a response, but they're having trouble getting through the artillery barrage. How long until they can reach us?" "Unknown, ma'am. Could be hours, could be longer." Zara looked around the bunker at her patients. Some were stable, others needed continuous attention, and all of them were depending on her medical expertise to keep them alive until help arrived. Hour after hour, the bombardment continued. Zara worked without rest, moving between patients, managing pain medication, monitoring vital signs, and making life or death decisions about treatment priorities. Morrison called Sergeant Torres. "We've got a new problem. I think I hear vehicles moving around up there." Zara stopped her work on Private Martinez's chest wound and listened carefully. Above the sound of continuing explosions, she could hear the distinctive rumble of tracked vehicles moving through the compound. Enemy ground forces, probably. Sounds like they're checking for survivors. Zara made rapid calculations about their tactical situation. 18 wounded soldiers in an underground bunker with limited weapons and no communication with friendly forces. If enemy troops found them, they would be captured or killed. "Torres, what weapons do we have?" 4 rifles, limited ammunition, and whatever sidearms the walking wounded still have. "That's not enough to fight off a serious assault. We need a different plan." Zara's medical training included battlefield medicine, but her current situation required tactical thinking that went beyond treating injuries. She needed to protect 18 patients who couldn't defend themselves. "Chen, any luck with the radio?" "Ma'am, I'm getting something." Sounds like Commander Phillips with a rescue force, but they're still several hours away. Several hours might be too long. If enemy forces are moving through the base, they'll find us eventually. Zara organized the bunker's defenses while continuing to provide medical care. The walking wounded were positioned to cover the entrance while the stretcher cases were moved to the safest area of the facility. The enemy search of the base took most of the night. Zara and her patients could hear vehicles moving overhead, voices calling in foreign languages, and occasional gunfire as enemy forces cleared buildings and eliminated any remaining resistance. "Ma'am, they're getting closer," whispered Private Williams from his position near the bunker entrance. Zara checked her watch. 20 hours, 10 hours since the initial attack, and they were still waiting for rescue while enemy forces controlled the surface. The sound of footsteps on the metal stairs leading to the bunker entrance made everyone freeze. Enemy soldiers had found their hiding place. Stay quiet, Zara whispered to her patients. Let me handle this. Foreign voices echoed down the stairway as enemy soldiers approached the bunker entrance. Zara positioned herself between the entrance and her wounded soldiers, understanding that the next few minutes would determine whether 18 American soldiers lived or died. The bunker door burst open, and 3 enemy soldiers entered with weapons raised. They stopped when they saw Zara standing in the middle of what appeared to be an improvised medical facility. American doctor? One of the soldiers asked in broken English. I'm Lieutenant Zara Morrison, United States Army Medical Corps. These are wounded soldiers under my care. The enemy soldiers looked around the bunker, noting the makeshift medical equipment and the obvious severity of some patients' injuries. They spoke among themselves in their own language before their leader addressed Zara again. You come with us. Soldiers, stay here. I'm not leaving my patients. They need continuous medical care. The enemy soldier raised his weapon toward one of the wounded Americans. You come now or we shoot wounded soldiers. Zara understood that she was facing an impossible choice. Abandon her patients to save herself, or refuse and watch them be executed. Wait, I'll come with you, but I need to stabilize my critical patients first. 5 minutes. The enemy soldiers agreed to wait while Zara made rapid preparations for leaving her patients. She gave emergency instructions to Sergeant Torres and arranged pain medication for the most seriously wounded. Torres, Commander Phillips is supposed to arrive with a rescue force. Keep everyone alive until he gets here. Ma'am, what if these guys are taking you to be executed? Then you're in charge until help arrives. Take care of our people. Zara was escorted from the bunker by enemy soldiers who seemed more interested in capturing a medical officer than harming wounded soldiers. As they moved through the destroyed base, she could see the full extent of the damage from the 10-hour bombardment. Every building was either destroyed or burning. Vehicle wreckage littered the compound. The communications tower was completely gone, and smoke rose from ammunition stores that were still exploding intermittently. The enemy forces had established a temporary command post in the only building that remained partially intact. Zara was brought before an officer who spoke better English than his soldiers. Lieutenant Morrison, I am Major Petro. You will provide medical care for our wounded soldiers. I'll treat wounded according to medical ethics in the Geneva Convention, but I have wounded soldiers in that bunker who need immediate care. Your wounded soldiers are now prisoners. They will receive medical care when convenient. Zara understood that she was being held as a medical asset while her patients were essentially hostages. The enemy's plan was to use her expertise while maintaining control over the American survivors. Major, I need to return to my patients. Several of them will die without continued medical attention. You will treat our wounded first. Your soldiers will wait. Zara was escorted to another building where enemy forces had established their own medical facility. Several wounded enemy soldiers needed immediate surgical attention, and her captors expected her to prioritize their casualties over American wounded. For the next 4 hours, Zara provided medical care to enemy wounded while worrying about the 18 American soldiers she'd left in the bunker. Her medical training required her to treat all patients regardless of nationality, but her loyalty was to the soldiers who were depending on her for survival. At 0600 hours, exactly 6 hours after the initial bombardment, the distinctive sound of American helicopters approached the base. Commander Phillips had arrived with the rescue force that Chen had been trying to contact all night. Major, those are American aircraft, Zara told her captor. Yes, Lieutenant. Now, we negotiate for the lives of your wounded soldiers. The rescue operation became a standoff between American forces and enemy troops, who were holding 18 wounded soldiers hostage. Commander Phillips established a perimeter around the base while negotiating for the release of the American survivors. Major Petro, this is Commander Phillips. United States Navy. We're here to evacuate our wounded personnel. Commander Phillips, we have 18 wounded American soldiers and their medical officer. We are prepared to negotiate their release. The negotiation continued for 2 hours, while Zara provided medical care under enemy supervision. Her patients in the bunker were running out of time, and she knew that several of them would die without immediate treatment. Major, I need to check on my patients in the bunker. They've been without medical care for 6 hours. Lieutenant, you will remain here until negotiations are complete. Commander Phillips's voice came over enemy radio communications. Major Petro, we're prepared to offer a prisoner exchange. We have wounded enemy personnel who need medical care. What do you propose, Commander? Medical personnel and wounded from both sides receive immediate care while we arrange prisoner exchange. Lieutenant Morrison returns to treat American wounded. Your medical staff treats enemy wounded. The agreement allowed Zara to return to the bunker where she found 18 American soldiers in various stages of medical crisis. Several had developed complications from their injuries. Others were suffering from shock and dehydration, and all of them needed immediate attention. Torres report on patient status. Ma'am, Martinez is critical. His chest wound reopened. Williams has developed a fever, probably infection. Chen's been unconscious for the past hour. Zara immediately began emergency treatment while coordinating with Commander Phillips for medical evacuation. The rescue helicopters could only land if the standoff with enemy forces was resolved peacefully. The prisoner exchange took another 3 hours to arrange, but it finally allowed medical evacuation of all wounded personnel. Zara accompanied her patients to the rescue helicopters, ensuring that everyone received appropriate care during transport. Commander Phillips watched as 18 wounded soldiers were loaded onto medical helicopters, all of them alive because of Zara's work during the 10-hour bombardment and 6-hour captivity. Lieutenant Morrison, I want you to know that what you accomplished here was extraordinary. You kept 18 soldiers alive under conditions that should have killed everyone. Zara looked at the burning remains of Alpha Base, understanding that she had experienced something that would define her military career and her understanding of what medical service really meant. Sir, I just did what any medical officer would do. I kept my patients alive. Lieutenant, not every medical officer could have done what you did. You turned a disaster into a rescue operation. The flight to the field hospital took 2 hours, during which Zara continued providing medical care to patients who had survived because of her expertise and determination. Every soldier on those helicopters owed their life to her refusal to abandon them during the worst night of the war. Commander Phillips's after-action report would document one of the most remarkable medical operations in military history. A single medical officer who had managed to save every wounded soldier under her care during a 10-hour enemy bombardment, followed by 6 hours of captivity. The intelligence gathered from the rescued soldiers and Zara's observations during captivity provided valuable information about enemy tactics and capabilities that would be used to prevent similar attacks on other American positions. 6 months later, Lieutenant Zara Morrison was promoted to captain and awarded the Silver Star for her actions during the defense of Alpha Base. Her medical techniques under extreme conditions became the subject of training programs for military medical personnel worldwide. But more importantly, 18 soldiers returned home to their families because one medical officer understood that her duty was to preserve life, regardless of the circumstances surrounding her. Today, Major Zara Angel Morrison trains military medical personnel in battlefield medicine, teaching them that the most important medical principle is the determination to save lives when everyone else has given up hope. Her students learned that medical service isn't just about treating injuries. It's about making impossible decisions and taking extraordinary risks to ensure that everyone under your care survives to go home. Have you ever been in a situation where everything was falling apart around you, but you knew you had to keep working because people were depending on you? Zara's story reminds us that sometimes our greatest victories come when we refuse to quit, even when survival seems impossible. The enemy forces who thought they could destroy Alpha Base learned that some medical officers are more dangerous than any weapon, especially when they're protecting the soldiers who trust them with their lives. If you believe that dedication and expertise can overcome any obstacle, share this story, because somewhere someone is facing impossible circumstances, not knowing that their moment to prove that heroes wear medical scrubs might be approaching faster than incoming artillery. Zara Morrison didn't just save 18 lives. She proved that the most powerful weapon in any army is a medical officer who refuses to let anyone die on their watch. Thanks for watching.